Sinead is going to speak, and then we're going to have a little clip from Kat, and then we'll have the Q&A from everybody. Yeah, we all need coffee. My husband's gone to bed, so I can't get coffee, but that's what I need. But Sinead, you're going to liven us up there because, well, how many hours are we in? It's definitely run over. I knew it would run over, but honestly, everybody had so much to say between like Michelle's PowerPoint, and it was so important to hear it all. And then, Robin and Nick, and then Ali and Laura, there's just been so much to say that I think it's important that we let it run on. We're going to have the recordings and we'll be able to put it out. It's only 4 o'clock here. It's 12 o'clock here, Carol. Go on then today. Knock us over.
I mean, I'm still in awe of what I've just heard from Michelle. I mean, well done. Like, I'm not kissing your arse or anything, but that was wonderful. I mean, when I knew that this talk was going to go on, I was like, oh, partially listen when other people are speaking, but you had me glued to the screen, Michelle. So well done.
Thank you.
I can see you taking over as one of the leaders, and no problem at all. The reason why, and as Stella mentioned, I'm supposed to be coming in as the optimist, if you can imagine that. The reason why I wanted to speak at the end was because by now you've already got all the stuff out the way. The cast review has been discussed, detransition has been discussed. I don't need to explain anything. So I'm just going to speak to you right now with the things that I think you need to hear. And I thought long and hard about how I could get those messages across. And what I ended up deciding to do was I went through numerous messages that I've had with detransitioned or lost in DeTrans people. That would be people who have transitioned but realize that they suffer from regret, but they can't quite bring themselves to detransition. I went through a whole bunch of messages over the past couple of years, and I jotted down some things that seemed to resonate. And so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm just going to go through the points that seem to touch people, because if it touched people, maybe it will touch you too. So the first one here, okay, no, actually, I should probably spend a couple of minutes telling you who the fuck I am and why I'm telling you about this. Okay, so we're talking about how you can move on from trans regret. Really, when you detransition, it's a massive thing that can happen to you. Everyone here understands what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's a number of people listening who understand what I'm talking about. But when you go through transition, it's huge. You take puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, you undergo various amounts of surgeries. That could be the removal of the breasts. It could be the shaving of the bone of your face. It could be lots of things. You dramatically change yourself. And if you end up regretting that, there's no going back. There just isn't, right? So you can end up in a really, really dark place. And when this is being facilitated by medical professionals very easily, you end up in a particular realm that I've been thinking about it, where you think, I don't have a right to feel regret. I really don't. And for me, I was on testosterone for almost 5 years. I got my breasts removed in a double mastectomy. So I got to that point, and I remember when my trans regret really kicked in. It was in 2018, and I was done. I quit my job. I dropped out of uni. I pushed everyone away from me. I was blackout drunk every night. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. It was the darkest hole I've ever went down. What transition regret did to me was everything other than kill me. And that was only because I was too fucking stubborn, frankly. And I went to therapists, I went to counselors, I got nothing. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear about detransition. They didn't want to talk about transition regret. I had nothing, which is why I turned to the internet to try and find other detransitioners. And I found many of them, a lot more than I thought I would find, because I'd always been told that transition was incredibly rare. You'll find 2 or 3. I found dozens the first couple of nights I was on there. and they were there for me. Like the therapists, the counselors, none of them were there for me. So I found a source of comfort because I didn't know what was going to happen. I was terrified. It was mentioned earlier in this chat, you come off testosterone cold turkey, it can lead to extreme mood swings and stuff. I did experience some mood swings, but for the most part, I was so numb from depression that I didn't feel anything. And when I told that to my therapists, they were like, maybe you're non-binary. It was horrendous. It was the reason why I get so passionate and so angry about this conversation isn't just because I experienced it and feel hurt myself. It's because I know people a lot younger than me are going through it. Because, like, listen, I'm 31. I'm young, but I'm old in terms of the new cohort of detransitioners. The vast majority of the detransitioners that I know are in their late teens and early 20s. They've got their whole lives ahead of them. And I get messages from them telling me about how they've ruined themselves. And I'm not having any of that. So I went through some of my messages and some of the conversations that were had. And I thought, rather than make a PowerPoint and be professional and intelligent and smart like everyone else in this conversation has been, I'm going to be impersonal because I think it needs a bit of that. There's so much clinical talk going about just now. I'm just going to put it to you as I feel. So here in the last message that I have, I'd said to this young man, you need to be able to feel your feelings, even the bad ones, because you can't numb them forever. And the reason why I said that was because this young DeTrans man had messaged me and he told me about how horrible that he felt in detransition. He couldn't accept that he'd grown breasts. He couldn't accept what he'd done to himself, the reputation that he'd got around his town. And he just wanted to numb it. He just wanted to get blackout drunk. He wanted to smoke himself into oblivion. And I get that. I think all of us can. You don't need to be a detransitioner to understand that. We all understand that when you're in immense amount of pain, you want to numb it. That's normal. But where does it get you? You can't numb pain forever. You need to feel. You need to feel loss. You need to feel grief. If you don't feel it, you just bury it and it's going to come out at a later time and it's going to wreck your life. So you need to feel it. So I think if you're struggling with a lot of very difficult feelings, such as transition regret, and you think, okay, I've made a mistake. I messed up. My clinic messed up. I hate myself. I'm stupid. I'm ruined. I'm mutilated. I'm going to get blackout drunk or so high that I can't remember. You can't do that for the rest of your life. You need to feel, because whenever you feel your loss or your grief or your sadness, you actually confront it, which means you can deal with it. And I'll get onto that in a little bit. Jesus, I've got a lot of messages. I'll probably cut them short because I know we've went over time. The next one is, no one likes feeling like a victim. And the people who think they want to be a victim don't know what being a victim feels like. It's not a good thing. Pity is the worst thing you can give someone. If you've actually been a victim of something, you don't wish you were, And so when you see so many people, oh, I feel so sorry for myself, I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. What's that doing for you? Is it giving you anything? Is it getting you anywhere? No, it's not. It's keeping you in place. It's keeping you in your little self-pitying ball where you're not going to go anywhere. So even if you are a victim, you need to try to get out of it. So if you've went through transition, you're struggling with transition regret and you're thinking, yeah, I've ruined my life, I'm a mess, I'm mutilated, there's nowhere I can go from here. Keep thinking those things. Where is it going to get you? It's going to get you in a box. It's going to get you under the ground. It's not going to get you anywhere. So what we need to do is we need to figure out, how do we get out of that? How can you move past irreversible changes? How do you get past permanently harming and changing yourself? Well, you get there by doing the hardest thing that you possibly can, which is forgiveness. And as cheesy as that may sound, I have to tell you, I hated myself. I hated myself so much. Forgiving myself was the hardest thing that I could ever do. I had to be able to forgive myself for getting myself in that mess. But here's the thing, once I did do that, all the anger that I built up went from the internal to the external. And I hated my gender clinic. I hated the people that facilitated what was done to me. I hated the gender specialist that gave me those cross-sex hormones and the referral for that surgery. And do you know how much that helped me? None. I was just caught in this horrible basket of just this chip on my shoulder. It didn't get me anywhere. And so what I had to do was I had to learn to forgive them, the people that allowed this, the people that supported this. And if you're in this position that I was in a couple of months ago, you're like, I can't. How can I forgive them from doing this for me? Well, I'll tell you, because even though you've got the changes of cross-sex hormones, even though you've had your breasts removed, or if you're a DeTrans man, you've had breasts implanted, if you decided to do that, no matter what change, no matter how dramatic that has happened to your body, it didn't kill you, which means you can still live and you can still go on and you can still make a life for yourself. You know, people are in horrible situations all the time. There are accidents and tragedies and all these things that happen to you all over the world. People are constantly thinking, how do I move on from this? I can't move on from this. The loss is too great. But do you know what? We are amazing. We're so strong and we can get through anything that life throws at us. And so I think that if you're, I mean, Jesus Christ, most of the detransitioners that I speak to are in their late teens or their early 20s. You've got your whole lives ahead of you. And you're sitting there saying, oh, I was on cross-sex hormones, or I took or I got surgeries. My life is ruined. I'm mutilated. I'm a freak. I'm a mess. I'm ruined. No, you're not. You're really not. You really aren't. And I think that that's the most damaging thing. And I know that so many people who mean well, I understand they mean well, but they throw around words like mutilated. They throw around words like damaged. They throw around words like ruined. I'm not mutilated or damaged or ruined. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And you can be too. So it doesn't matter what's been done. And I'm not excusing it. We should never have been allowed to transition. That was a failure on the part of the people who were supposed to be caring for us. We should never have been allowed to transition, but we did. So what are we going to do? You're just going to give up? That's the end of it? No. I think we deserve a chance. I think after all the suffering we've been through, we deserve a bit of happiness. And so even if there's been things that have happened to you and treatments that you've received that you're not happy with, no matter how horrible it is and how hard it is. And, you know, I was at that stage. Jesus, I remember literally curling up on my bedroom floor, properly ugly crying, like out of my mind. I can't get past this, Sinead, behave, Sinead. It's like, it's one of the most difficult things that you're going to experience, but it's also one of the most difficult things that you are going to get over, because you can, because that's how strong you are. And I think the victimhood mentality that has been adopted by so many people these days is a disgrace. You don't want to be a victim. Sometimes you are, and that's unfortunate, but your immediate goal after that is to overcome it. And so if I had to say anything, I've already discarded the notes that I had, but if I was to say anything to someone who was either beginning their detransition, who felt that they needed help in their detransition, Or if you don't even need to be a detransitioner, okay? You can be a trans person lost in transition. There's lots of them. I've spoken to so many who they decide to settle. They decide to lay in the bed that they've made themselves. We've all spoken to them. Everyone in this chat, I know you have, because we've spoken about it. We all know that exists. All you need to know is that no matter how bad it gets and no matter how miserable you feel, you have only one shot at this life and you owe it to yourself. You've suffered enough. So I think you might think, oh, no one's ever going to want me because I don't have any tits. Yes, they will. You're dramatically overestimating what people want in a partner, you know? And I think when it comes to things like, you know, I've had all this stuff done. I've ruined myself. You really haven't, because there's more for you. There's more to offer to the world than just what your body looks like. There really is. And I think when I see so many, and so they're so intelligent and they're so smart and they're so clever, these young people, their whole lives ahead of them, and they think that their lives have been ruined because they transitioned. No, I don't approve of this narrative of detransitioners being ruined, mutilated, poor little souls. We're not. I'm not a victim. You're not a victim, because actually we can take control of our own lives and we can make ourselves as happy as we deserve to be. But the problem is you need to work for it. And I know it's hard. For the first year of my detransition, most of which I can't remember because I was a blackout drunk for the whole time, because I was trying to get myself drunk enough to get up the courage to kill myself. You get to that stage, but you eventually get to a point where you realize, do you know what? Wallowing in self-pity gets you nowhere. I can sit here and I can feel sorry for myself all day. What does that do for me? Nothing, right? So if you want to be happy, if the reason that you transitioned in the first place was because you wanted to be happy, that's telling you that's what your goal is. So why are you now sitting here in detransition, miserable, hating yourself, telling yourself you're all these terrible things and just letting it happen? Why aren't you trying to move on and be happy? Because you deserve that. And I think with detransition in particular, regret fueled detransition in particular, a lot of the anger that you can feel that's put into yourself, where you hate yourself and you think, I'm stupid, I'm an idiot, I let this happen, blah, 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 blah. And then you eventually get over that, but then your anger goes outwards. And you start getting really angry at the clinics and you start getting really angry at everybody else. I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is forgive people. Forgive them for what they've done, because what else are you going to do? I forgave my gender clinic for doing that to me. I forgave my gender specialist for the half-assed evaluation I got. I forgave the gender team who gave me cross-sex hormones, even though they never met me. I forgave all the counselors and therapists who told me I was trans and non-binary. And I forgave myself for falling for it. And it was the best decision that I ever made, because we all make mistakes. And I know it's not as silly as grabbing the wrong thing at the supermarket, but it's still a mistake, which means it can be forgiven and it can be moved on from. And unless you're happy with the life of simply sitting there all day, feeling sorry for yourself, oh, I'm so miserable and ruined and blah, 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 that's not a life to live. It really isn't. And so you owe yourself, and you owe your loved ones as well, because they joined you on this journey, to actually lacing up your bootstraps and say, I deserve to be able to have a life. I actually deserve to be happy. I actually deserve to be able to move on from this. And if you're a 21-year-old detransitioner, you literally have your whole life. Yeah. So I'm not buying any of this mutilated, ruined, my life is over bullshit. I understand why it feels that way. And it's a massive, massive call out to the therapists who have failed this population, but it's not your fault. So I think that we should all be able to just say, I deserve to be happy, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yay. Big round of applause there for Sinead. That was absolutely rousing. Very,
What
very.
happens when I discard my
Sinead.
notes? I forgot half the shit I was going to say.
You didn't need your notes. That was very, very powerful. And you're right. And we all need self-compassion and self-acceptance. And it's the road forward if we can. Yeah, everybody is giving you loads of claps. Thank you very, very much.